welcome to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. And what are we talking about this time? Well, some games went into the World Video Game Hall of Fame. They've joined up. And you may be wondering, what are those games? So, the Strong National Museum of Play has revealed this year's inductees into the World Video Game Hall of Fame. There are 4 games in the class of 2023. The Last of Us, Wii Sports, Barbie Fashion Designer, and Computer Space. They were selected based on a number of criteria, including their influence and popularity over time. Of course, you know, The Last of Us, the most recent inductee of the batch, Naughty Dog's post-apocalyptic action-adventure. You know, it has a show now. We had a sequel to the game, but, you know, the original was a hit on the PlayStation 3, sold well on the PlayStation 4, and I'm sure sold just as well on the PlayStation 5. And it came out to the PC, but we don't talk about that because I'm sure it probably still sold pretty good, but it did not play very good. So then you got, you know, Wii Sports, that it came out in 2006. And at the time, you know, the Wii wasn't quite the gimmick that the Wii turned out to be with a bunch of shovelware and stuff. But Wii Sports, I mean, it didn't matter. If you had a Wii, from the time you had the Wii to the time you got rid of the Wii, one game that was always in your Wii, or at least went in there, was Wii Sports. I remember I got that game. I got the Wii when the Wii came out. Wii Sports came with it. And I, even to the day before I even sold my Wii off, that game was always played. I'd always have friends come over and want to do Wii bowling or Wii whatever, boxing, the tennis, whatever it was. So, you know, not that I would be playing it. Sometimes I would pop it in and do the bowling or whatever if I was kind of bored and just decided to, you know, let's do some bowling or the golf or whatever. But most of the time it was, you know, friends that would come over and want to, you know, let's play Wii Sports. Okay, let's do some bowling or something like that. So that was, I can understand it being in the Hall of Fame because it was a very, you know, popular and influential game at the time it came out, right? You got Barbie's Fashion Designer. No, that's not, I haven't played that one, but that came out in 1996. Mattel and Digital Domain released Barbie's Fashion Designer at that time. It allowed players to design clothing that they could print and dress their real-life Barbie dolls with. So apparently the game was a hit, selling 500,000 copies in 2 months. And 1996, you know, today's, that would be like, well, that ain't nothing. But back in 1996, that's a pretty good amount of, that, you know, it's a pretty good amount of games being sold for a game back in that time. You know, they say on this article here that Barbie Fashion Designer became a jumping off point for the girls' games movement and shook up the software and gaming scene, says Christy Heisert, collections manager at the Strong Museum. It also sparked important questions and debate. What does it mean to be to a game to girls? Should there even be games for girls? What are the impacts of these games? What are the consequences of gendering games? I mean, Barbie Fashion Designer, I could see possibly that may have, right, brought a lot of girls into the gaming, you know, because when we were young and when we were a kid, you know, there are girls that would play and stuff like that. But, you know, you would look at it, especially as a kid, and how it was kind of advertised as more of a kid's, but more of like a boy's activity, right, for gaming. That's kind of how it was advertised at the time when we were young, right? Because you look at old advertisements for games and stuff, it was all kind of centered towards men, right? The male gender. So I could see like maybe if Barbie Fashion Designer was the first game for girls to really bring out like, you know, kind of getting them into the fold, creating a game for girls, right? I'm sure there were others and stuff like that, but this one seemed to be the first one that really made it popular, right? And maybe brought girls into, you know, into gaming, and where they could probably experience other games because of that, right? They kind of get into the hobby and say, hey, what else they got out here, you know, and maybe play games that are not just Barbie games, but other things, right? And also maybe inspire some young girls to become game designers in the future, right? And stuff like that, to really get invested in the whole gaming world, right? There's a lot of things that could have happened. This is all speculation. It could be nothing at all. But that's just what I'd say. If it's going to go into the Hall of Fame, it's got to have that influential impact. And it sounds like, according to the Strong Museum, it did in some form or fashion. Right. And then the final game, Computer Space, which is an arcade hit based on 1962's Space War, which was primarily found on the DECP-DP1 micro or mini, sorry, not micro, not that small, mini computer in computer labs. The success of the 1971 Computer Space spurred creators Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney to found a little-known company called Atari. So this game basically sparked them creating Atari and the Atari games and things that we know, right? So that game sparked their imagination and propelled them into creating a beloved company that is doing some weird things nowadays, but whatever. I mean, they're buying old stuff again. The old is new, right? The nostalgia is strong with Atari in this day of age. But back then, Atari was the brand, right? Before Nintendo came along, Atari was the thing, right? I remember I didn't have an Atari growing up, but I know my grandma did, so I'd go over there and play it until we got a Nintendo and stuff. But I remember playing the Atari and some of the old Atari games. So yeah, these are some good selections. I mean, there's a lot of games out there that can go, there's a lot of games already a part of the Hall of Fame and a lot of games that are very influential. It's good that they use a criteria. I mean, hopefully I would suspect that when they're thinking about these games, they're thinking about more than just what's popular and thinking about what, besides how many did it sell and how popular was it, did it spark influence or create some sort of movement or, really drive innovation in some sort of form or fashion, right? Creativity, innovation, spark interest, things like that. That's, I think, what makes a game a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, is something that does more than just being good, right? It has to bring games into a different area, like Last of Us, right? We had similar kind of story games and stuff, but Last of Us really centered, the first one really centered on that story and emotional connection type of gameplay, right? That we didn't really get with a lot of games until that game came out, right? I mean, because that first scene where, if you never played it or watched the movie, I mean, it's this old now, I'm not spoiling anything, but when you're with your daughter and she dies and everything, that's a very emotional scene. I know. It's like watching Up at the very beginning, right?
What?
Except for Ellie doesn't get shot or anything. Well, still. Anyway, the point is, that type of game creates a, it sparks something. It sparks a kind of a movement in how game design is done, right? Because after The Last of Us, we saw a lot of games that try to mimic that emotional connection with characters and storytelling, right? That we didn't get before. And so we see a lot more games try to be more personal in that sense, right? So there's a lot of games out there that kind of spark some sort of creative or push forward a genre in some form or fashion, right? They may not push it into a new genre. They might not push things like to the next level per se, as far as like beyond beyond like current existence, but they add enough features and enough creativity and things of that nature that they push a genre into a new direction or create new things, right? And so that's why I feel like those should be a part of something like a Hall of Fame. And giving the description from the Strong Museum, I can see why these were added into that. They all have their place in society and in the world, in their history. So, in all the great games that really did a good job of pushing the gaming forward should be added to this. I mean, every year I think they add new games to it. So, if your favorite one is not currently a part of the Hall of Fame, you never know. Next year it might make the cut. But let's go around and see what everybody thinks of this. Shane, what do you think of the Hall of Fame nominees and their inductee?
What? No. I have a little bit of a issue with this. So Last of Us, I fully understand the impact in the gaming industry that it made, the impact it made with me as a gamer. You're absolutely right. A lot of game developers tried to copy the formula, and most have not been able to pull it off remotely. The game was amazing. It is in my top 5 of all time, just because of the emotional impact of the game from start to finish. Thanks for spoiling it, killing off the daughter. But no, the game is just tremendous. Now, that being said, computer space, I can kind of understand that as well, because that led into one of the biggest and most well-known developers, Atari. I mean, they are a staple even today. That name is synonymous with video games. May not be for the best, but they're still very synonymous with the industry. Now, they had 4 other titles that were well deserving that were nominated were Age of Empires, Angry Birds, Call of Duty, and then there was FIFA, GoldenEye, NBA, Quake, and Wizardry. These are some of the other titles that were, along with those 4. Now, those didn't get in. So, and not to knock Barbie, sorry, babe, but, no offense, but GoldenEye waffle stomps you when it comes to impact of the industry in every form and aspect. The GoldenEye, amazing gameplay. They really kept the story of the movie. I mean, Pierce Brosnan looked like crap, but it looked like Pierce Brosnan in the game. It was so far ahead of its time. I mean, it cemented shooters for a console until Halo came along and reinvented the shooter for console. And Quake, I would have put, out of all the games on the list, I would have put Quake above any of them. Plain and simple, to the point. I don't disagree with opinions, but if you're going, depending on how you base your selection, Barbie was nowhere near that top of my list, just by impacts alone from these other games. But it's kind of odd to see Barbie in there. Now, Wii Sports, I can understand, because Wii Sports was huge. It created a game place for grandma to play. I mean, grandma comes over and grandma plays bowling with you. I mean, the Wii was huge at nursing homes. I don't know if you guys remember that. I mean, nursing homes were all over the place. People were breaking hips, but they were loving it. And I understand the impacts and the fun and all that stuff of Wii Sports, but Barbie, I'm sorry. You need to go back in your box, because you compared nothing to any of those other games on this list here. I mean, there's even the game Wizardry. I've never heard of it, but I just did a quick search and looked at a couple of things on it. That game looked pretty damn cool. I guess I was out of the loop when that one came out. But it looks really, really neat. Now, granted, I don't know what impact it had or if it contributed to RPGs or anything like that, but I just know it, for me, it looked like it would be a better fit than the Barbie game. So, I have a few issues with the list. I think pretty much everything else would have destroyed Barbie. So I'm a little disappointed by that, but Last of Us is a no-brainer. It's such a definitive game that, it should have been nominated and put in there years ago. And I'm kind of surprised it hadn't been. So what about you, Pat? Do you agree James Bond would have wrecked Barbie?
Yeah, by their criteria alone, I think it does, right? Because the criteria for this one was everyone knows the game, longevity, game's been around for a while, and geographical reach and influence. Was Barbie really geographically influential in China and Japan?
No, she was hellacious in Portugal.
I imagine GoldenEye was. And to be honest with you, even I don't know, man. Even the computer space, while it's been out for a long time, it's not well known anymore. Like, if you ask most people our age, they're gonna be like, I have no clue what the hell that is, and but you can ask, I guarantee you, most people our age, if you ask them about GoldenEye 007, they're going to tell you stories about taping a cardboard lid to the TV so that your brother can't see where you're at in the game when you're playing multiplayer, or putting the blanket over the TV or something, stuff like that. That's influential. I would honestly say that, computer space, while it's influential in certain aspects, doesn't belong on the list neither. I would say Quake and GoldenEye should replace it. Maybe even Age of Empires, because Age of Empires spawned massive LAN parties, massive competitions. There was always an Age of Empire competition when we go to LAN party games and stuff like that, and back in the day, before you had the whole, esports things, that was a game to play against your friends in a giant RTS game. So I don't know. I got nothing against any of those games. They're all games, and they're, and they bring some inclusiveness to the game museum. But I don't know. I think that this year's picks was off, in my opinion. And I'd like to see, based on the criteria that they listed, so everyone knows the game, icon status, longevity, the game's been around for a while, and geographical reach and influence, those two games don't belong on the list. But that's just my opinion. It's all opinion based anyway. No matter what, you can say there's criteria, but unless there's a hard number fact criteria, then it's all based on opinion at that point, because there's nothing that says influence is based off of number of copies sold worldwide. And then longevity means that the game is still in production to this date, which I don't think you can get any of those games in digital marketplace today or new. Last of Us, you can, obviously. Yeah. You can buy Last of Us new.
They just re-released it.
I'll talk about the original, though. You can't go buy an original cartridge brand new. I mean, you could probably find some water graded, never out of the box, but that's not being produced. It's not. Last of Us 2 is still being produced today. I don't know anybody producing the cabinets for computer space, because it was a specialized cabinet and everything like that. I mean, it's a super old game. So, ROMs and stuff like that, things like that. So, but you can still buy Age of Empires digital today. You can still buy it brand new. You're not going to buy a physical copy of it brand new. Last of Us 2 is probably the only one on the list that could probably claim that out of the list, because things like Angry Birds don't come on digital media, on physical media, things like that. So the list is subjective, and it has something like NBA 2K on there and FIFA International Soccer. Get those out of here, And Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare doesn't belong on the list either.
I would disagree with that.
Why would you disagree?
I really would, because Call of Duty Modern Warfare is one of those, in my opinion, and granted this is opinion, it was one of those pivotal games that really, it completely reinvented Call of Duty. For one, it triggered a chain of copies for what Call of Duty did there. I mean, they took and made this such a cinematic game. I mean, I still remember playing it. I remember the Gillies missions, for example, and the online multiplayer of that game was phenomenal, and a lot of people tried to mimic it. It stuck around forever and a day. And people still play it, even with the new revamped HD versions and stuff of it. I would disagree that game didn't belong on the list. Now, whether or not it belongs in the Hall of Fame over something like GoldenEye, I don't think so. I think GoldenEye, to me, as far as the way the Hall of Fame criteria works, I think GoldenEye takes the place of that one easy. But I think Call of Duty Modern Warfare would belong in there. Granted, that's opinion.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what is in that. And, you know, the Quake, you know, it's kind of in my opinion, Quake's like it's a Doom clone. I mean, that's what it is. It was influenced by Doom, and they even admitted it when it came out. So, you know, that's why I'm like, I'm not too sore about that. But I mean, to say that those games are influential, like geographical reach and influence, to me is mind boggling. You know, because I guarantee you they're not icon status. If I ask the majority of people of those two games, they're probably going to say no. But if I ask somebody about Age of Empires or even modern, you know, Modern Warfare 4, you know, Call of Duty 4, if I ask anybody about that, they'll know those games. That shows to me icon status. And 2007 to almost 2020, you know, we're in 2023, 4 more years, that'll be a, you know, 20-year-old game. That's longevity, and it's still being talked about. You know, all those games are on there, but 2 of those games on the list that won don't belong there. On those two criteria alone, they don't belong there. Now, maybe if you stretch the criteria into something else, maybe you can make them fit, but their opinions is what I'm trying to get at. Those are the people, the panel of judges' opinion that they wanted to bring that in. Whatever reason, their bias has influenced their decision, which we're all biased to some degree, to most degree, I should say. It's hard to take your own personal opinions out of something in whatever you do in life. There's just no way. The only way you can take personal opinions out of anything is math, right? You can take your personal opinion out of math because 2 + 2 will always equal 4. It will never equal 5. It will never equal 6, 10, whatever, you know? So you can't have your own bias in there, but you know, science, literature, all that stuff has bias in it. The person that is writing the article, doing the research, is injecting their own bias into it. And we would all, in a panel of video games, be injecting our own bias into that panel of video games that we pick based on our own opinions and upbringing, nature versus nature, whatever you want to go by. We have our own biases. So it's a bias list, and nobody's ever going to agree on it because it's opinion. It's inductee into the Hall of Fame. It's still an opinion. It's the panel's opinion. Those games should be there over these other games, because there's no hard set criteria to get into the Game Hall of Fame. Sorry, but that's not. You can say icon status, which they're breaking down into, you know, longevity and geographical reach and influence, but 2 of your games shouldn't be on that list then that you put in there, but compared to the other games in that.
Yep. So that means you bastards need to take them out.
They don't belong.
You don't belong here.
What are you doing here, boy?
You know, what makes these fun is the fact that it is opinions. And, you know, me and Pat, we completely disagree on certain games that would fall under that. But at the end of the day, it's not up to us because we don't own the place. So, I mean, if it was up to us, there damn sure be a little more facts involved with the opinions and the placement of these games into the Hall of Fame. Nick would be like, I just went it there because I like it.
I mean, out of the selection of games, you know, if we all 3 said, okay, you can pick 3 games out of it, or 4 games, because there was 4 inducted. Mm-hmm. If you could pick 4 games out of this collection, there might be some duplicates for sure, but all of our selections would be completely different. Right. At least by one.
I would say
right?
I would say it would vastly differ. I'd be honest. I'd say we all vastly differ in like our top. If we were building our own Hall of Fame and we each got
not including the list that's provided, right?
Yeah, if we got to pick our own.
Oh,
we got to pick our own inductee list, and we were each told to provide a list of 4, and only 3 get inducted. You know, 4.
I don't think there would be any duplicates.
Yeah, in 4 games there wouldn't be any duplicates, I don't think. In 10 games, probably. If you said, give me a list of your top 10 favorite games or top 10 games that you think should be in the Hall of Fame, and only 3 of them get inducted, so we're submitting 30 games, how many? There's probably going to be duplicates in the list, but yeah, I would say our list would still vary quite drastically in that.
Okay, so Last of Us. we all love the original game, right? I mean, there's no denying that. We all love that game. I put it in, and it's hard to say, but I would put that in my top 5 of all time games. I would. And that's me.
It's not
now,
in my top
Pat,
5.
Would it be in your top 10?
It would be close. I don't think it would be in my top 10, though, to be honest with you.
But
it would be close.
Yeah,
it's
if you were Casey Kasem, it would definitely be in your top 20, 25.
Yeah. It's in the top
Nick,
100.
What about you?
No, it wouldn't be.
Where would you place that in your top of what?
It would
top
be pretty
20?
far down on my list.
Really? As much as you
the
love
type
that
of
game?
games I like and really like.
That's true.
That I love Last of Us, but it's
games.
not close to the top, right? I love a lot of old school games and a lot of RPGs, which sit at the top of my list compared to Last of Us, which sits closer to, out of the list of whatever, it sits closer to the bottom of that list compared as far as like top favorites and things like that, right? It's still a great game. I love The Last of Us 1, but it's not in there. It's not in there.
We should do that. We should do a top 10 list. Each of us do our own top 10 list of all time.
Yep.
And only 3 get to make it into our Hall of Fame. And we all have to agree on those top 3.
Yeah.
Ooh,
that would
be rough.
That would be a knockdown, drag out fight right there.
Oh yeah, there would be some blood.
If we do that though, we have to, because that'd be a long episode. We have to do it live or something like that, or just make one big episode, because that would take a while to go through that if we're going to record it and stuff.
Ooh, man, that would be rough. I'd be honestly, Nick, you would be the one I'd worry about most, because you are more on the obscure, and you love pretty much anything with an R, a P, and a G in it.
My list would probably be vastly different from your guys's, I would say.
Yeah.
Like your guys's,
he's gonna have a lot of Metroidvania in his, I feel.
I would agree.
Pat and Shane's list would be, they may not be the same games, but they're going to have a very similar, I think a similar-ish style.
A little more comparable, yeah.
And mine's going to be like totally left field. More likely.
Yeah. Yeah, what is Wafu Brothers? What the hell's that one, Nick?
I don't know. That's a game you play. I play Wafu's Sisters.
That would have been a game come out of Shane's portfolio. You'd have been like, "What is that game?" And it'd come from Shane's list. That's the thing we should do. Too bad we don't have a moderator. We should have to each submit top 10 games from each of us, and then the moderator gets those, and we don't know what each other picked, and they'll talk about the top 10. They'll talk about the top one from each of us, and we all have to guess who picked the top one.
Yeah.
Nick should
find
probably
a moderator. We could find a moderator.
Yeah, we used to know a guy. We used to talk and hang out with us, but he disappeared. He would have been a good moderator.
Yeah, plus we all have wives and girlfriends, so I think we could find a moderator.
Yeah, but they're not fun because they're not into the whole gaming industry. They don't know anything. They were like, what is StarCraft?
What is this, Jeopardy?
Yeah, because then it would be, having somebody that knows games know what your topics are and probably know how to frame it to where the others couldn't guess whose game it was easily enough,
Yeah, we would definitely have to find somebody with gaming knowledge, but who is indifferent enough not to, cheat. But yeah, I like that idea. So, but yeah, this list is understandable in some ways, but some games just don't belong there, and Barbie just makes no sense to me. Granted, it was geared towards girls. That's the only part about that I could understand, but
it's a STEM thing, right? And that's probably why it got on the list, because it's science, technology, it was STEM. It was before STEM was a thing, back then. It was getting girls into technology and video games and stuff like that. So that's perfectly fine, but don't lie to us and say it's based off of these set criterias when, I don't care if you want to induct it. That's cool. It's games.
Perfectly
games are for
fine.
everybody, in my opinion. No matter who you are, what you are.
It's fun
games
for girls and even boys.
Right. Ren and Stimpy had it best. It's fun for a boy or a girl, So it is what it is. I just don't agree with their criteria in that game. It has nothing to do with who the game's for. If you like to play the bar games, so what? Play them, have fun. I don't care. Nobody cares. It's gaming. As long as you're spending money on games, which means that the hobby continues for all of us, then that's all I care about. But I think their criteria, they're just lying to themselves and us on why it's in the list.
Yep, I agree. That's a little too more. That's a little too much opinion based of a entry. So.
True. But, everybody, thanks for listening to us talk here. We've been talking for a while. But let us know down in the comments below, what is your favorite? What games would you put out of the list of games that they've put in the Hall of Fame or that were inductees, or maybe even your favorites? What are your 4 games that you would include in the Hall of Fame yourself? Let us know down in the comments below. And if you would like to see us create our list like we were talking about and do a whole thing going through which games is whose and then picking the 3 or 4, whatever, that we would put into the Hall of Fame as a collaborative, let us know down in the comments if you'd like to see that. And I'm sure we can work on putting that together and maybe have a little surprise at some point where we have that video, or maybe do a live video of it where we go through it and stuff like that, because that would be a pretty long video to go through 30 games and then deliberate and come up with a thing. But that would be fun to do. So let us know if you'd like to see that down in the comments below. But other than that, thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. Do us a favor, induct us into the Hall of Fame by hitting that subscribe button and hit the bell notification to stay updated with new videos that we do all the time. We'll see you next time.
See ya.